L'chaim, l'chaim.
Chaim.
Chaim, yeah.
Today's erev like baomer. So we went out with the bachrim. We're out in the field like the minhag that it says in Ayim Yom. Them like baomer, you go out to the field. Now you know something about the field. According to the Gemara says we don't daven in a field. Why? Because there's no walls. I think something about a field is that there's no walls. There's no limits. We just go beyond all limitations. And especially today is the birthday of my brother, michoel, akiva, gershon, refoel, menachem, nochum. Tonight's his yahrzeit. So if we're going to verbring now leiluy nishmas, he was a guy who never had filters when he was verbringing. So now, even though usually, I'll tell you something. In the Tafshin Mem Dalet, the Rebbe spoke about the Gemara that speaks about Kam Rabba v'Shachti Reb Zera. That on Purim, Rabba and Reb Zera, they both got drunk, and Rabba shechted Reb Zera, and the whole explanation of it. And it's interesting, later on the Rebbe was magir as a likut in short, in Chelek Lamed Aleph, but also in Chelek Chav Zayin, in the Isafis, the Rebbe was magir the entire Fabrengen. The Fabrengen was said on two shabbos, Shabbos parshas Shmini and Shabbos parshas Tazria. Now I don't know if this is reliable, but that's what they say, that the reason why the Rebbe didn't say it on a weekday Fabrengen, specifically the Rebbe spoke about on two Shabbos Fabrengens, is because on the weekdays these things go out on the hookup, and then people hear it, and it's a whole story of Rabba and Reb Zera and Rabba shechting Reb Zera, and you're discussing it, whatever. So the Rebbe said it on Shabbosim, which means that when you're talking on videos which go up on YouTube, you have to be careful, and that's why usually, even though these videos are for alumni, so we usually have certain limitations. But this time, you know that whenever I upload the video, so they ask me, is it for kids? And the answer that we have to answer, or supposed to answer, is not for kids. Basically, this Fabrengen is not for those weak of heart. If you're weak of heart, then it's what they call today rated, and you can't, then you should leave now the Fabrengen. And the point of the Fabrengen is a Fabrengen to speak about the truth as we go out into the field without any agbalas, to bring it from the highest place into the lowest place into the field, so that you go beyond agbalas. So there's a story. Reb Mendel Marazov used to tell this story, and I heard this story a few times from Akiva. And the story goes like this. There were two brother-in-laws. One was a chassid, and the other was what they call today in the very politically correct lingo, chassidically challenged. And the one brother-in-law, the one who was chassidically challenged, he got very sick. And he calls in his brother-in-law, he says, I'm about to die, I feel there's about to be the Yitzias HaNeshama, please bring in a minyan, so I should have a minyan in the room for Yitzias HaNeshama. And his brother-in-law, the chassid, turns to him and he says, you lived your whole life like a peit tzaddik. You have to die like a peit tzaddik also? Die quietly. Starb still at 8. What are you making such a big deal out of yourself? Your whole life you made a big deal out of yourself? And you needed a minyan for everything, you needed a crowd for everything, you want to die with a crowd also. And the point of it is that if right now for my brother Akiva's yahrzeit, if we're going to tell stories about him, then he'll get out of his grave and he'll kill us. The point of it is like this.
Mendel.
A chassid lives with one thing. He doesn't make any big deals out of himself. You know that in the Gemara in Gittin, in Gemara in Bava Metzia, it discusses a story with Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, and it says like this, that Rish Lakish said to Rabbi Yochanan, Maya Hanisli, what did you help me? Over there they called me Rebbe, and now they called me Rebbe. So what's the big deal? Hasam Rebbe Karili, Hacha Rebbe Karili. And he said to him, Hanislach, the akrivas I brought you, tachas kanfi ashchina. Rabbi Akiva, by Zevel, der ken sein a Godel. He could have been a big Godel. And if the whole point now is that he's going to become a gadol here, then not him gonish geholfen, you didn't help him at all. He doesn't want you to sit by a fabrengen and talk about how great he was or how great he is. He wants that a person should sit by a fabrengen and recognize that avaya likim emes. The truth is, Elokus is the truth, and ain't it milvada. If you're going to start looking at a person and making him into a gadol, you know that when the Frierdiker Rebbe tells the story of when the Alter Rebbe met Rabbi Yosef Kolbe, and the Frierdiker Rebbe says he was standing there and he didn't have his hands behind his back, and the Frierdiker Rebbe says, because Al Pi Kabbalah, you can't hold your hands behind your back. So the Frierdiker Rebbe says Al Pi Kabbalah, but I heard from Chassidim a reason also why you shouldn't hold your hands behind your back, weil es stinkt. The fact is, to be by the Gdolim is distinct. And that's the Nekuda. If I'm a big Gadol, I remember one time I was walking with my brother with Akiva. We were going, we were late, as usual. We had to go from Crown Heights to Flatbush for Shabbat Barachas for Shabbos. So it was already late, it's already before Shkia, so we both put our talesim on. And we walked from Crown Heights to Flatbush on Friday night. So I remember on the way, as we're walking through Flatbush, he shows me a sign that it says, Sali Voreini ki Gadol Bikirbech. He's gelacht von them. Zu werden a Gadol darf man nicht. And that's the reality of the world. The reality of the world is what it means for a chassid. A chassid means someone who recognizes that Avaya Likimemes and his whole mitzias is not for him, and not that he should exist, but that the whole world should know the truth that Avaya Likim Emes. You know, there were two brothers in the time of the Alter Rebbe. They were both Vilenker, Moshe Vilenker. I don't remember the other brother, if he was, what his name was. And then one of them passed away. They came from Vilna, so the Levaya was in Vilna, and all the Gdolim of Vilna all came to the Levaya. So the other brother, he says, Ich will sagen a hesped. I want to say a hesped about him. He says, what's the hesped? Hat Feind gehabt, misnagid wie eine Wähler. Says, the reality is that if a person is a mitzias, that for Chassidim is the most disgusting thing that can exist. That I should exist. That I should exist. The reality has to be a lokos b'pshitas, and that's it. That's the only way that there is. That Avaya Likim Emes and Lokos is b'pshitas. And that reality, you know, why did I say that this is not for children? Because if a child's going to come here to fragen a shaila, a narish shaila, but it's a good question, seemingly. It's erev like baomer. It's a time when the whole focus is Avas Yisrael. And especially in our times, in the situations that we're in now, the one thing we need is Avas Yisrael. There's no question about that. So what's a person talking about? Chassidim and misnagdim and things. So I want to explain it with a story. The Alter Rebbe, Shmuel Munkes came into the Alter Rebbe. And it was at night, and Shmuel Munkes comes into the Alter Rebbe's house. And he came in, knocked on the door, and the Alter Rebbe answered. He said, what are you knocking on the door in the middle of the night? He says, because this is a Yiddish shtub, this is a Jewish home, so for sure you're going to let me in. So Alter Rebbe says, but I'll call my guy and he'll throw you out. So the Reb Shmuel Munkes gave a sigh, and he said, mein guy is größer wie dein guy. My guy is bigger than your guy. And the reality is that misnagid doesn't mean the person who wasn't brought up to learn Chassidus, or wasn't zeichet to learn Chassidus. Sometimes he could be a bigger chassid than the chassid. Because in reality, as soon as he hears something, an emesiv vart, klepste zech zu them, he connects to it. Misnagid means the misnagid inside me, which my guy is bigger than your guy. The fact that a person, that I can feel myself an existence that feels that I have to fight with my neighbor who's a shliach and he's stepping on my toes because he's a bigger shliach than me. Or he's building a moisad which is stepping on the toes of my moisad, or whatever it is. That's called a misnagid. A misnagid means a reality which goes against the existence and the ability to accept that a lakus is true. I exist, and my existence has to exist. And if my existence won't exist as a mitzias, then there's an issue. The Frierdiker Rebbe said once, they asked the Alter Rebbe, after the Alter Rebbe came out of jail, they asked the Alter Rebbe, why did Chassidim have the chutzpah to call themselves Chassidim? How did they take for themselves the name Chassidim? And the Alter Rebbe said, Chassidim don't take anything for themselves. A chassid is someone who knows he doesn't take anything for himself. He takes what he's given because he believes in hashgacha pratis, so he takes what he's given. We didn't take the name Chassidim, we were given the name Chassidim, and they chose for themselves the name Misnagdim. The reality is that they wanted to call Chassidim Bali Tshuva. And the problem was, Mitzadavas Yisrael, they didn't do it because then what are the other guys going to be called? A chassid is a bal tshuva, meaning someone who realizes that azeh is nish gut. It doesn't matter where I am in the world. It doesn't matter where I'm holding. I know that the truth is Eibishter. The truth is Elokus. And there's no other truth. Eined milvader. There's nothing else that a person can see. When a person realizes that truth, the truth of Elokus, the truth of the Eibishter, then he's a chassid. That's what it means to be a chassid. Misnagid is the Asis Meis Neged. Gestorbener, and he's against. He's dead against. A chassid is chai with samach dalet, which I'm not sure what samach dalet stands for. The Bali Gematria will figure out what the Gematria of samach dalet. Samaches is chaim, but whatever it is, a chassid leapt. What does it mean? You know, they told once in Eretz Yisrael, in the press, in the Israeli press, they had about a certain Rav, a big Rav, whatever it was, and they kept on making a spedim about him. After a month they made a haspid, after a year they made a haspid, after a year and a half another haspid, and they wrote like this in the press, they wrote, the Lubavitcher Rebbe doesn't stop living, and this rabbi doesn't stop dying. He's constantly dying. For a chassid, life means my connection to Elokus. And my connection to Elokus means in a way that I don't exist. I don't exist. What exists is Elokus. So I'll tell you a story. The last time that I visited Akiva before he moved to maybe a brighter home, but not a home that he wants or that we want, because we want there should be a kitzu v'ran shich, and I promise you the better verbrengens are down here in Elamaza Tachtin. Even with us Shvens, but this is where the better verbrengen is. With the good guys, we can't verbrengen because everybody has what to say. But the fact is like this. He told me a story. He told me a story because it was a connection with the upped dose of some of his drugs or whatever it was. And he tells me that there was a behar who was together with, who used to go with Zalman Schechter. Zalman Schechter was already older, and the behar would play for him verbrengens of the Rebbe from the years that he was there by the verbrengens. You know, so you should give him some. Kid said, one verbrengen, suddenly they hear the Rebbe says, Reb Zalman is da, on the tape. The Rebbe says, Reb Zalman is da, is schon zurückgekommen von seinem Trip. And Zalman sits there and he's in ganz nispel. And he says, play it again, I want to hear this again. And then he explained to the behar what happened. He says, I was trying out a new drug. And I called up Label Groner and I said, I need a bracha from the Rebbe. So what do you need a bracha from the Rebbe? He said, I'm going on a trip and I need a bracha, I should go safely. So he asked, where are you going on the trip? I said, I'm going on a trip. And the Rebbe, by the verbrengen, said that Reb Zalman is da. Is schon zurückgekommen von seinem trip. And that was the story he told me. And I think this story is a powerful story for every one of us. As a chassid knows it doesn't matter where I go. If I am looking for myself, I need to be a mitzias, I need to be an existence, then my nefesh abamis tells me, itkur my avdis biurta, like the Persian king, remember what you did last night, and therefore you're not shaykh to anything. But when I'm a chassid, which knows that Avaya Likim Emes, that the only truth is Elokus, So it's not going to stop me that I went on a trip. And it could be the trip is the furthest place from where a chassid should be. I'm b'derech recheika, and it's lochem, and I'm tami lo nefesh, and it's lochem. I chose to do it. But nevertheless, I know that the Rebbe cares about me and is interested and wants to know. And with what lashon Rebbe? The Rebbe looks at us and says, it doesn't matter where you went, where you were, you're a chassid, that your whole reality is a lakos. And a chassid could be a person who learned a lot of chassidus, or a person who never learned chassidus, or a person who doesn't even know that he has to learn chassidus. But a chassid means someone who recognizes that to live, life means a lakos. Life means eibishter. Life means avayli kimemes, regardless of where I've gone, regardless of where I was. And this was the power of Rashbi. Reb Shimon ben Yochai came from the highest place to the lowest place, the height shebahait. Reb Shimon ben Yochai, I'm like baomer, he go out into the field to bring it into the lowest place. It doesn't matter where and what it is, because a lakus is true, and it's true. Emes is Aleph, Mem, Tov, as it steht in Yerushalmi. Aleph is the first letter, Tov is the last letter, Mem is the middle letter. That means ani rishein, vani achrein, umi baladei afilu in emtsoisa, not even in the middle, ein elikim, there's nothing else. That's what means truth. And that's what it means. That's what Reb Shimon bar Yochai gives us. Comes today erev lag baomer, and we know that as chassidim, no matter where we are, no matter what we are, we know that kedayu Reb Shimon lismich alav. We can rely on Reb Shimon even b'shas adchak. B'shas adchak, when the world is dark. B'shas adchak, when in my life it's dark. I know that the truth is a lakus, and that the Yebisher is waiting breathlessly, waiting for me to come back to him, waiting for me to connect to him, waiting for me to realize the truth. And that wait is not going to be long, because today, on erev Shabbos, before we get to Shabbos, there's going to be already the Izgalus of menachem Mashiach, and there's going to be Hakitzu V'ranenu Sheikh Niyafar, and together with that will be Akiva. Together with that will be Rabbi Akiva and the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, which includes Reb Shimon bar Yochai, and we're all going to be in Yerushalayim Irakedesh, in the Beis Hamikdash Hashlishi, together with the Rebbe. The Rebbe is going to fabring with us tonight, on this special night of erev lag baomer, and kol shekain on lag baomer, with every single Jew in the Beis Hamikdash, which is also called Sadeh. Hasada Shebirche Avaya. We're going to be together Beis Hamikdash Hashlishi, all of us, every single Jew, no matter who he is, no matter where he is, but we have to strengthen Avas Yisrael. Avas Yisrael means it doesn't matter if a person is stepping on my toes don't count. What counts is Elokus. What counts is Eibishter. What counts is the truth that becomes that Yeda Kol Pol Kiata Pialta, and the whole world is going to know and see it. I'm going to see it Beinei Basar. Take of me on Mamish L'chaim.